Hi, so I wanted to discuss the xylophone, the water xylophone activity that we did yesterday, and relate it back to some of our Unitarian Universalist principles. I have this wonderful book called Everybody is Important, A Kid's Guide to Our 7 Principles by Jennifer Dant. It came from the UUA bookstore. There's the back of it. I don't know if you can see that. There's a picture of our author right there. So this book goes through each one of the 7 principles, and after explaining each one, it has a little short story and question and answer discussion that I'd like to get to at some point during these videos. But right now I just want to discuss our activity from yesterday with the water xylophone and relate it to the 1st, 3rd, and 7th principles. The first principle, every single person is important. You might be thinking, well, yes, every single person is important, but what does that have to do with water glasses? And what I was thinking about while I was making my xylophone is how each one of those glasses sounded just a little bit different. There were 4 glasses that I took out at first that had really different tones, and then the 8 that I ended up using for the xylophone all kind of sounded the same. And even though I decided to only use the ones that sounded fairly similar to each other, those other glasses are still incredibly important because I can still drink out of them. I can still use them for other projects. So even though each glass is maybe made a little bit differently, it maybe sounds a little bit different, it maybe looks a little bit different, each one of those is important, and that's just like us as people, right? So each one of us looks different from each other. We have different voices, we have different abilities, we think differently, we have different emotions, all of those things. But each of us brings that unique set of skills and traits into the world to make it a much better place. And we're all important in that way. So the next principle is number 3. We spend our whole lives learning how to be the best people we can be. And if you think about the glasses and what I did with the water, how each one I added a little bit of water to try to get to the tone, the sound that I was hoping for. And it wasn't perfect. Remember, it's okay if it wasn't perfect. It got to a point where I was satisfied with how it sounded. And sometimes I took water away. So do you remember when I had that little glass of water with just a little bit in it and I poured that water out because I didn't want to use it anymore? That's how we as people and as Unitarians approach our lives. We spend our days and our weeks and our lives adding things to our life and sometimes taking things away from our life. So we add things like learning, like education. So we go to school to learn about reading and math and history and art and music and other languages and other cultures. What are some things that you like to learn at school? I know you each have your favorite subject at school. We also go to school and we go to the park and we have friends so that we can learn social skills. We learn how to play with each other. We learn how to talk to each other. We learn how to ask good questions. We learn how to respect each other. And sometimes in our world, we have to take things away in order to be the best people we can be. Sometimes that's a physical thing, like an old t-shirt or an old toy that you don't use anymore, and it's just in your house and making a mess. And if you got rid of it or found somebody else to use it, donated it to a cause or gave it to a friend who could use it, that might make your world a little bit calmer and a little bit happier. Sometimes we have to learn how to get rid of certain emotions also. So we all have a wide range of emotions, and we talk about this a lot. Emotions are really important, and it's okay to have all the range of emotions. But sometimes some of the more negative emotions affect us in a bad way. And we have to learn how to get rid of those emotions so that we can be calm again and so that we can continue to learn. And that doesn't mean that it's gone forever. It just means that we learn how to get out of it, out of, say, anger or sadness or frustration. So if you think about that little glass of water as anger or sadness or frustration, I didn't want to use that because it wasn't what I wanted it to be. It wasn't helping my xylophone. And so I just put it aside. I put it in another glass and I set it aside. And I ended up using that later for something else that I'll talk about in a second. So as we are going through our lives, remember, we're adding to our lives, and sometimes we have to subtract from our lives to find that balance of how to be our best selves. And finally, the last principle that I'm talking about today is number 7. We respect our earth and all living things. So remember that little glass of water? I didn't just dump it out. I used it. I used it to water my plants. And you might also remember at the end of the video, I used a little bit of water to water my plant. And you also will probably remember my cat, Zenaida, getting a drink from one of those glasses. She got more of that water later because it was still good fresh water and there was no need to get rid of it. And so I used it to help my animals, my plants, and then I made some tea later on with some of the water. So there are all sorts of things that you can do rather than just throwing something away. You can find another use for it that is helpful not only to another living thing, but helpful to the earth. So as you go out and into your lives and into your world, think about how what you do impacts the other living things around you and how you can best make use of those things to help the other people, the other animals, the plants, and our earth. Lots to think about this week. Who knew, with just some water and some glasses, that we could have this big discussion about our Unitarian principles. But that's the beauty of it, is we have so many of these principles just relate to life in general, and it's you might find that some other principles relate to the water xylophone, and you might discover that maybe the ones that I mentioned, you don't think that they relate at all, and that's fine. That's great. It's really important to come up with your own thoughts and opinions on things, so I'd be really curious to hear what your thoughts are. If you want to send me a video or a quick note or a picture, I would love it. I would love to see it. See you all soon. Miss you. Bye.